The big shift is that business of global streaming is audience acquisition, bringing new customers to it. They have the data that already of who's watching and what they watch, and they can no longer think that they know better than the people who actually engage in the film.
Tat, so many years of experience and probably...
Calling me old.
No, I'm just saying that there's a lot of experience here in the room, and I'm saying that probably it's not the first time that you're seeing a shift in how things are perceived with regards to those that have access to power of funding, but also how to better position the talent, and not necessarily one story of Dea or Rand or any other filmmaker, but rather the career of a filmmaker on a long run. So could you tell us your opinion about this shift?
Well, I think there's a couple of shifts that's happening right now that you really do have to look at them simultaneously to try to anticipate where certain things are going and to recognize the opportunity. And I think something that's been an undercurrent in what everyone has said is that so often, as whether you're an artist or a business person, you are engineering your work for the existing system, so to help lift it. And I think so often we limit ourselves precisely on what is possible as to the what more could we have and try to achieve. We don't. It's amazing, as someone who likes to think of different business models, and the way that I got to be involved with so many interesting filmmakers early on in my career is we did look at what could be. And we were just like 3 seconds ahead of some other people, but that was kind of the birth of an international sales model for auteur cinema. So 2 guys without any financing were able to ultimately finance my first company, Good Machine, 45 films, half of which we were able to own with the filmmakers. We had no money, we had no connections, but we saw a different way of building something. And that was inspiring to me to always try to look at, why are we settling for what doesn't really work? How do we actually look at what the is and ask where we can move it towards at the same time? And I think that right now what's really interesting, there's many problems with it, but there's some positives too, in kind of the business shift from what was a business of single title, revenue-based, making a profit of your movie industry, to one that is dominated by global streaming. What's the shift for an artist, right? The big shift is that business of global streaming is audience acquisition, bringing new customers to it. They have the data that already of who's watching and what they watch, and they can no longer think that they know better than the people who actually engage in the film. So there's a huge global demand to make sure that the perspectives of both the creators and the subjects reflect who the audience actually is, right? So, 125 years of cinema, leads for most of those stories to be told and star people that look like me, right? And that doesn't work anymore. Like, you can no longer settle for that. You have to look at all communities in every which way and provide for those. And the people that have been in power, to date, know that they don't know what the hell is going on for that they can't hope to provide the proper perspective or proper subject. So in much of the way that, Hollywood had a big change in the 70s when the industry realized they were out of touch with the audience, that's a global industry right now. They're out of touch with their audience, and they have to try to transform that. And when you start to look at what the industrialized processes are, right, they generally ask you to do something opposite, right, to conform to find a way to simplify what is being created and make judgment on it in a really quick way. For the industry, institutionalizes different forms of pattern recognition so that they can move quicker to make these decisions. And that's where all the mistakes exist, right in that muddled point. You know, what I find super interesting is, I've been around for a while, and I see the same number of new, specific, distinct voices emerge each year of excellence, the people that get to have their first feature in Cannes. We generate that, but I actually see the number of people who may not have that specificity, the command of the tools yet, the awareness of what they quite yet to say. They're still developing as an artist. The number of people who do good work, not excellent work, increases a lot. So what are the processes that we start to provide to help them lift into that excellence? And sometimes it's precisely like the Hubert Ball's fund of leave me alone and give me money. Sometimes it's actually changing the way that we do our processes. That I found as a producer coming up, wanting to work with directors from different perspectives than my own, I had to sometimes compensate for what they weren't comfortable with, right? The American film industry is like, be decisive, show strong leadership, be a jerk, right? So how do you change those processes to bring those voices in?
That brings me to the question to you, Dea, because you are developing your second feature right now, right? I think I've read somewhere that you were saying that something you wouldn't want to expect from all those existing structures and tools is to be constantly challenged, but rather to find places where you are probably more embraced, if I'm right. Yeah, supportive. So go ahead.
Well, not only the systems of development, but I always, when I try to find collaborators, I always say that just please don't challenge me, just work with me and allow me to work with you. Really, let's fulfill each other. And because there is so much challenge when you're making a film that it's just enough for all of us. But I think if we talk about the challenge of a second feature, it's and I guess I had the same challenge in a way for the first feature because of my short films. It's the expectation of what I need to do as a person who did this first short and second. Like there is this expectation, oh, okay, this is what she does. But you're someone who's also looking for something as a director.
Inspiration.
Well, I'm constantly looking for something. I don't know what does it mean to be a successful director. I know what does it mean to really want to make this film, and that's where I need support, not just to go with something that works and be successful every time.